Good morning. This is retired Pastor Karl Schmidt from Calvary Lutheran Church in Amherst, New York. Welcome you this morning to our sermon online. We're still not open. We hope to maybe get open sometime next month or the month following. That'd be nice. It's been a long time. Well, it's February, the third week, February 23rd. February 21st. Sorry about that. February 21st, Sunday morning. It's sunny outside, which is great. We had a kind of sunny day or two ago. That was nice, too. We get spoiled if we keep getting all these nice sunny days here. It's been really, really pleasant. Almost dog walking weather again. Yeah, dog didn't catch that one. Anyways, well, we're also in beginning Lent. We finished up Pre-Lent in the old church here, and we're now moving on to the first Sunday of Lent. So that's also good. I know our local fire hall, they have fish fries, and everyone looks forward to that when they have the fish fries at the fire halls. That's a good thing. Anyways, well, let's see here. The text is appointed from Matthew. We're reading from the 4th chapter, and let's get it up in front of me here. In English would be nice. Okay. Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was, and afterwards hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple, and saith unto him, If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things I will give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then saith Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Here ends that portion of the Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 4th chapter, and verses 1 through 11. This text has a lot of areas that are interesting. We have different names for the one here who came to him, devil, Satan, and tempter. All basically have the same connotation or idea. We're focusing on verse 3 here today. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. The peripazon, which is the word in Greek, ho peripazon, it's a participle because it has the participular form, but it also has a definite article, which makes it an adjectival participle. In other words, for all of you that are not versed in Greek, what that means is that it's not just a name, it's a nounal verb. It gives you some idea of who or what this identity is. And it comes, peripazon comes from peripazo, which has its root in perira, the Greek word for trial or tempt or temptation. And the idea behind that is the same as the Hebrew for satan. The Hebrew satan simply means adversary. That this is a creature of God that God had made, and that God uses. For instance, we run across him first in the Old Testament in the book of Job, by that name Satan in Hebrew. And there we find him as one of the angels of God who visits with God, and they have a conversation about Job. And then the book of Job follows. Here, God the Father has sent the same Satan that we see in the Old Testament to be the trying or tempting for his Son, Jesus. And in this, there are so many different things we could look into, but one of the things we want to look at this morning is lies. It's become terribly commonplace in our country to lie. It's bizarre to even say this in a modern world where science and technology and advancements in both science and technology proceed at a dizzying pace, where I hate to use the word facts, but data, let's just simply go with data, is produced by the bucketful every second, every minute of every single day, round the clock, because it's always daytime somewhere. Well, this idea that lying, especially in our country, United States, is become common. I suppose it picked up in politics, but it's spread to so many areas of life that people just find lying acceptable. I suppose it has a lot to do with social media. Now, I'm not against technology. I'm not for or against much of anything, frankly. But social media gives people a very easy, faceless avenue to say whatever they want to say, or type whatever they want to type, actually. And from our lesser natures usually comes a deluge of garbage and refuse. And that's what we see. We see lying taken to art form by some people. They actually, for the purpose of being deleterious or being not just a nuisance, but to actually cause harm to people's reputation. That's one of the most valuable things you own. It's not gold, not diamonds, not a house, not a car. The most valuable thing you own is your reputation. And you see these lies attack that. And that's exactly what we see in this text. We see that the Father sends this tempter to Jesus, who is, at this point in the text, hungry. He's gone without food. Now, fasting, according to Hebrew tradition, does not include lack of water. Of course, he had water, and he may have even had some light food. Fasting usually refers to the fancy foods, pastries and delicacies and meats and things like that. But bread and water are not usually considered fasting. And even in the Jewish tradition, people who are, for instance, more frail, or sick, or pregnant, are not even allowed to fast even to that standard. They're required to eat, and eat well, to stay healthy, and so forth. Well, so that's not to say Jesus had no food or water. That would be incorrect. And God the Father would not subject his Son at that point to harm. Well, what is the nature of this lying? It is to attack Jesus' person, to attack his identity, to attack his reputation. And we see that in this verse 3. I gotta make my notes here. Fix that, verse 3. Where we read, again, and when the tempter came to him, he said, now this is the first of the temptations, if thou be the Son of God. The rest of it doesn't matter. In the Greek, it's e uios tu theou. E uios. If. This is a conditional particle, meaning, that whatever follows may or may not be true. Well, isn't that the very nature of a lie? Especially the most hurtful ones that attack reputation and person. And you see, this is what has bothered me personally tremendously about the last several years, even. That I don't want to use the word politics, but government, officials of government, from whom we expect the truth. And this is a commodity that is not open to negotiation. The truth is something we guard jealously. We have branches of government designed around maintaining truth. And people's person and reputations rely on the truth being maintained. And anyone who attacks that, taken into court and sued, at the very least, quite possibly further punishment if it is warranted by the law. And so the fact that we have a nation where lying for millions has become just acceptable. Not only acceptable, but they pander to these lies. Now I said this is right in the vein of Satan. Now that's not some religious, wild-eyed nonsense. This is the text in front of us, and this character that is sent by the Father to accost his Son is identified for us as Satan in the text, which is the entity that God the Father uses to tempt and try human beings. This is of God's own making. And God tells him how far he can go and how far he cannot go. That's not just the book of Job, that's for all of us. But when people, human beings, take over the role of Satan, that's bad. And especially when they attack reputations. And this is what I've watched on TV and in social media. Now, I don't do social media, but my relatives do, my wife and family, and they watch over these things, and they read these things to me, and it's like, what? Come on. And it's the most horrible, awful lies. Now, you see, Satan tells lies in order to attack reputations and person. When he said to Jesus, the first of these temptations is e uios tu theou. If the Son of God you are. That's awful. If. You see, it's just a short little word, if. But what he does is attack the Son of God by attacking his person and reputation. Because that's what a reputation is. It is who you are. And when that is stolen from you and attacked, then the most precious thing you own has been attacked and stolen. Your reputation, your person. And so in a country like our own, where truth and data, I'm surprised that people didn't lie about the boiling point of water, because they've lied about just everything. And it goes on. It's not confined to just an election or whatever else. It continues. People have become used to lying, and somehow that has to stop. I hope the courts take a very active role, and the executive branch of government takes also a very active role in prosecuting and trying and rendering proper justice to maintain people's reputation so that it's not stolen, so that it's not attacked. Because when you lie about a person, you have leveled an attack against them, against their most precious possession, their reputation. This is how and exactly what Satan did toward Jesus. If the Son of God you are. Really? Satan knows who he is. But you see, this is the most vile attack. Now you see, with that's the sermon so far has been law. I hope you understand that. The preaching of God's word occurs in two parts, law and gospel. And until you state the law clearly and succinctly, lying is a vile attack on a person's reputation, his most precious possession, and against their very person. And it is how Satan works. Jesus once referred to him as a father of lies. Now you see, if you've become used to lying, if this has become your bread and butter, if this is how you treat people, do you really expect to go to heaven? You see, the law preaches death, mut in Hebrew, thanatos in Greek. It teaches condemnation and accusation. And for those who lie, that is the God-given penalty, mut, thanatos. You see, lying is not a small thing. It is one of the ways in which the commandments of God are broken. And the soul that sins faces that punishment from God. Now that is law. In that I have not preached any gospel yet, none. But it remains that one would have to answer for these lies before God. Now on earth, you get enough people together to lie about anything, and they'll go, well, millions of other people said it, so it must be true. Oh, that's going to be hilarious before God. Well, God, everyone else was saying it, so, I didn't have to check because, hey, everyone else said it. Oh, yeah, well, you're going to hell. How's that for funny? That's hilarious, actually. Because that's the end of your reputation before God. Again, that's law. And there's an old axiom, preach the law as if there is no gospel, and preach the gospel as if there is no law. And so, to lie is equivalent to eternal death. There you go. How's that for really simple? Why should we not go around spending our lives lying? Oh, I don't know. Hell? Does that equate to anything for you? Hey, if that doesn't, if you are so big and tough that God is not an issue, okay, well, you knock yourself out, buddy. You have that. He makes an interesting adversary because he has a little helper. His name is Satan, that he sicks like a junkyard dog on those who fall and fall and fall. That's how God uses Satan. Satan isn't God's adversary. Come on, God has no adversary. He invented everything and everyone outside of himself. Yeah. So if you thought this was God's adversary, you really got that one wrong. No, this is our adversary. But we not only have an adversary, Satan, but we have an advocate. Now we're switching from the law to the gospel. The advocate is Jesus, this very one that Satan came to malign, to lie about, to slander, to question, to bring into question whether or not he is in fact and indeed the Son of God, which Satan well knows is true, because he's known him, well, for as long as Satan has been in existence, since God made him. God is, I don't want to use the word forever, because that word doesn't actually mean anything. But God just simply is. How's that? But you see, on the gospel side, those who have lied have an advocate. The very one that faced personal lies in this text. That's why the temptation of Christ is so important, because he faces and is subject to all of the sin of this world, and yet he, without any sin, he remains without sin because he is true man and true God. He is the Son of God. Not only does he not sin, he cannot sin. He is God. There's an old doctrine, impeccability of Christ. It's not one of those, the old Dr. Francis Pieper, I remember back in seminary, and I don't know, volume 2 or 3 has, just a couple paragraphs on the impeccability of Christ. Not one of those real popular doctrines of dogma, but yet it is, because here we see that, of course he cannot sin. He is God himself. Sin is nothing else than to violate the will of God. He is God. Sin is not a thing that you do. Sin is to be outside of God's love and perfection and holiness. And that's why we need the gospel. That's why we need an advocate. Of course, the adversary is out there, and oftentimes we are our own worst enemy, as lying teaches us. But we have an advocate with the Father, one who speaks on our behalf, one who went to the cross to die for us, so that for all of our lies, all of our filth, all of our brokenness, if you want to call that sin, so be it. It's armartia in the Greek, but I still don't understand what that word means. To be something outside of what God himself is. That's sin. But I don't know what God is. So how can I describe sin? So we have an advocate with the Father. This is his Son, who himself faced a lying thing, Satan. And so we learn that Jesus faced every sin in this world, and yet did not fall into sin himself, because he cannot. And then he went to the cross on our behalf, in our place, to face God's wrath against me, against you. This earnest wrath against sin and the sinner. You see, that goes together. And so those who lie would otherwise face an incredibly angry God, if it were not that this same God who is angry has changed his mind, has rendered a different verdict. Rather than guilty, which we are, instead he renders forgiven, innocent, cleansed, pardoned, reconciled, adopted, family, sons and daughters. Excuse me. And that's the work of this one who was himself maligned by lies. So, this teaches us some things. One, lies are pernicious and evil. They have their source in the father of lies, and if that's who you are, and that's who you have aligned yourself with, may I suggest, under the law, that God's law, not man's law, that you think about that, because that is going to one place, eternal death. But if you've sought God's forgiveness, if you've looked to the announcement of the gospel, the gospel is nothing else than the story of Jesus. We're not in it. And looked to that and thought, yes, God has done this for me. That thought alone is faith. To believe, to trust, to be convinced, patho in Greek, from pistoeo, to believe. It comes from to be convinced. To be convinced that God would change his opinion, his verdict, and declare you forgiven. Well, that also then should compel you, gospel imperative, to not purposely go about lying. We're still going to lie, even inadvertently, and sometimes on purpose. And yet at the same time, be careful. Be careful of the most important things that other people own. Their reputation, Be careful, because you're playing with something very horrible, very damning, and very, very, very awful. Instead, protect your neighbor. Defend your neighbor. Stand up against those who would lie about someone else or you. And that is the Christian duty. To sit by quietly is to be complicit in a lie. And if you consider yourself Christian, then most certainly you cannot sit by idly while others spew this satanic vileness. And by satanic here, I simply mean that it is the work of the adversary to harm reputation. Don't be that. Defend reputation. Honor your neighbor. And in that, you do God's work. All right. Well, this has been retired Pastor Karl Schmidt from Calvary Lutheran in Western New York, Amherst. I hope you found some ideas in there that might be helpful and useful. And you see someone of your fellow countrymen who has lost themselves in lies, point out to them that this is offensive to God. He really, really doesn't like that. But rather, he welcomes those who look to him for forgiveness and hope. All right. Take care. Stay warm. Wear a mask. We're not over this yet. I'm getting my vaccine soon. If you're in poor shape like me, see your doctor, and he can get you a note that you should be vaccinated. So that's a great thing, and it's making the world a safer place for all of us. So, all right, take care. Bye-bye.